Hey guys, so I know this looks a little weird, but we're actually going to use this as notes. So today we're going to learn about something called Cpctc, and that's just shorthand. So what is it actually an abbreviation for? Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So what does that really mean? Right? So it means if you tell me, look at these two triangles. If you tell me these triangles are congruent, so it says name the triangle congruence theorem that says they're congruent. It looks like we have angle, angle, side, right? Angle, angle, side tells me that these two triangles are congruent. Now that you've proven that those two triangles are congruent, now you can tell me all the parts that aren't marked. So now you can tell me A is congruent to D. Angle A is congruent to angle D because we know the triangles are congruent, so we know their parts are congruent. So this always comes, Cpctc, you always have to prove the triangles are congruent first, which we did, angle, angle, side. Now that we know the triangles are congruent, now we know all the parts are congruent. So this says use it to name the other three pairs of congruent parts. So everything that's not marked pretty much. So we know angle A is congruent to angle D. If the triangles are congruent, their angles are congruent. We know side AC is going to be the same as side DF. Again, even though it's not marked, you just told me the triangles are congruent, so those are definitely equal sides. BC is going to be congruent to EF now. So you can actually use this in problems like number 4. So it says some hikers come to a river in the woods. They want to cross the river but decide to find out how wide it is first. So they want to know from G to H, how wide is that river? So they set up congruent triangles. Right triangles, sorry. The figure shows the river and the triangles. So right here, you know vertical angles are equal. These sides are both marked 3, so those sides are equal. So here we have angle, side, angle. We know those two triangles are congruent. So let's set up our statement here. Triangle, how about, well, this one doesn't have a letter. How about A? We'll put an A here. So triangle AJK is congruent to triangle AHG. AHG. And we know that because of angle, side, angle. So now that you know that, they want to know the width of the river. So the width of the river is GH. GH should be the same as KJ. Well, KJ is 5, so the width of the river is 5 meters. So you actually used angle, side, angle to prove the triangle is congruent, and then you said, well, if my triangles are congruent, then I know the parts are congruent. So once you said your triangles are congruent, you knew that GH was the same as JK. Using it in proofs. So here, notice they want you to prove angle P is congruent to angle R. Well, there's no marks here, so we've got to work our way through this proof. So PQ is congruent to RQ. They have ticks. That was given. And PQS, got a rainbow. RQS, got a rainbow. Those are equal. Again, that was given. So the next step says reflexive property. That's when they share that side. So remember, reflexive QS equals itself. All right, that reflexive property, and we're going to go ahead and put a tick on that as well. So looking at this picture, it says side, angle, side. Remember, side, angle, side is what you use to prove triangles are congruent. So now we know triangle PQS is congruent to triangle RQS. So now that you've proven the two triangles are congruent, now you can say all their parts are congruent. So we wanted to say P was congruent to R. Well, now you can say it. So yes, P is congruent to R because of Cpctc. Because corresponding parts, the ones that go together, P goes with R, of congruent triangles, we just proved they're congruent, are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Let's do a little graphing. So let's plot some points. We got 0, 0 is A. 0, 3 is B. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 0 is C. We got A, B, and C. And then X, Y, and Z. So X is at negative 2, 3, 4, negative 1, 2, 3 is X. Negative 4, 0 is Y. And 0, negative 3, 0, oops, sorry, negative 1, 2, 3 is Z. So here's my two triangles. They ask what the side lengths are. So AB is 1, 2, 3 boxes. We don't have to use a distance formula for that. AC is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Let's do all our countable ones. XY is 3 units, and XZ is 4 units. So we're looking pretty similar right now. They want us to find the other two sides. So understand we're going to have the same Pythagorean theorem however you look at it. So let's set it up. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals BC squared. So we've got 9 and 16 make 25. And your last step is to take the square root. So you know that final side is 5, and you know this is going to be the same exact equation. So we have a 3, 4, 5, and we have a 3, 4, 5. Why are these two triangles congruent? Because of side, side, side. We just proved that they have 3 sides in common. So how do you know angle X is congruent to angle A? So notice I just proved my triangles are congruent. So if my triangles are congruent, my parts are congruent. Cpctc. If my triangles are congruent, the parts are congruent. So that's it for notes. Now, what you're going to be working on is this packet. Okay, so it's 3 pages, and they give you a congruent statement. Triangle cat is congruent to triangle dog. Find the value of H. So notice H. So it tells you the triangles are congruent. If the triangles are congruent, their parts. Oops, let me draw. Okay. If the triangles are congruent, then their parts are congruent. So this whole worksheet, they're telling you, hey, the triangles are definitely congruent. So now you can use, okay, well, if they're congruent, I know CA should be the same as DO. So CA is 15, which means DO is 15. So H equals 15. So find out which ones go together. Scrolling down a little bit, when you start getting to the equations, find out what pieces are equal. Here we go, cat and dog again. So again, CA should be the same as DO. CA should be the same as DO. CA has to equal DO. And you're going to solve. That's not done yet. So subtract your 3x, add your 6, all that fun stuff. And that should get you through the rest of this worksheet. You do have a couple of proofs. We have a couple of proofs here. You're just going through, again, mark your givens in your picture, mark your givens in your proof, and kind of work through the proof. Draw the stuff on the picture, see what happens. See what happens. All right? Actually, I can do one with you. I have plenty of time. So this first one says N is the midpoint of AB. N is the midpoint of AB. That was given. Then it says, hey, I'm going to use definition of midpoint. Well, if it's in the middle, I know I have two equal pieces. I know I have two equal pieces. So I know AN should be congruent to NB because of the word midpoint. The next one says AX is congruent to NY. Again, that was another given, but we're going to mark that in our picture. AX and NY. And then the next one says given NX and BY are congruent. So NX is congruent to BY. So the next one says the two triangles are congruent. Remember, you have 5 ways to prove triangles are congruent. So if we look at these two triangles, they're congruent by side, side, side. And then your last step, if you say that triangles are congruent, you can tell me their parts are congruent. And that's that Cpctc. And I'm fine as long, you don't have to write it all out. You can abbreviate. But remember, we said the triangles were congruent. My next step is I can say the parts are congruent. So they wanted me to prove X was congruent to Y. If my triangles are congruent, then my angles are congruent. So yes, angle X should be congruent to angle Y because of Cpctc. So again, just work your way through these. Look at the meanings of things. Words like the word midpoint or the word bisect. Stuff like that, two equal pieces. Think about what they mean. All right, so finish this up. And that's it for today. Bye, guys.